are back. This is Creativity is the Cure. I'm your host, Malcolm Moore, and today I have my new friend, Sal Edwards. How are you doing, Sal?
Well, I just finished a 5 mile run, so I think that's pretty refreshing. I do that to get prepared, Malcolm, for our conversation.
That's amazing. That's a good way to get energy. I just met you, and here's how I came upon your name and what you do. About 4 or 5 years ago, I was having a lot of foot pain, and I was in Burbank teaching, and I drove past this store called Fleet Feet, and I was like, well, I need some new sneakers. Why don't I try that out? I went in there, and these people took a 3D model of my feet. I couldn't believe what was going on. And then they brought me this pair of shoes, and as soon as I put them on and walked around, my feet didn't hurt anymore. So I became addicted to this store, and ever since then, my feet don't hurt.
Good.
And then a few months ago, I was like, you know what? This is pretty wild. I want to look up and see who started this company because it has made my life better. And I came upon your name, Sal Edwards. And I just thought when I looked at your life, it was way more than Fleet Feet. And I think you've had a fascinating life. And before we start, because I have a lot of younger listeners, I'm just going to read a quick overview of some of the things you've done. So here we go. Sal Edwards is one of America's leading experts in business, exercise science, and lifestyle living. She's an author, 25 books, oh my God, entrepreneur, professional triathlete, motivational speaker, and app developer. Edwards supported and then qualified for the first women's marathon Olympic trials in 1984. Her passion is to get America healthy and moving. And today, Sal uses her passion for getting America fit to lead Heart Zones, a PE technology company. That covers some of it, right, Sal?
That's 90%, Malcolm. Thank you.
I listened to a few interviews of you, and I'd like you to share with everybody, why did you start going by Sal instead of Sally Edwards?
That's actually a pretty good story, and it begins with the fact that I'm really proud to be a woman.
Yes.
A woman in business, and a woman in the sporting goods industry, because when I co-founded Fleet Feet with my best friend in 1976, so this is the 50th anniversary of a retail chain that started with $2,000 and a big dream in Sacramento, California.
Wow.
So I use the name Sally because I'm happy with my gender and such. And then maybe 5 years ago, I said, I think I'm getting discriminated against and so now it's 50 years later.
Yeah.
Since when I first started my first business, and I'm a serial entrepreneur. So I changed it to my signature on my email to Sal Edwards. And by the next day, I get a phone call from this man, and he said, I'd like to talk to Sal Edwards. And I said, you are? And there's this long pause. And he said, you're a woman. And I said, yes. And it changed, it validated what I changed the whole conversation to all of a sudden, I'm in this scenario of not being male.
Right.
And I thought, we should not make assumptions, particularly about anything, race, gender, politics, music, your favorite.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we get really deep into what you do and what you've done, my podcast is about how people use the improvisational or creative part of their mind to get through challenges in life. So I think what you do is extremely creative. So if you don't mind, I would like to go back to when you were a very, very young girl and tell me, what was your first creative memory? When was the first time you thought of an idea, brought it into the physical realm, and said, where did this come from? Oh, I did that.
I don't know if I can answer that question. I've done a lot of firsts. I've written a lot of books. They were the first book written on this, let's say, example, the sport of triathlon.
Yes.
And I used to have to spell the word triathlon triathlon instead of triathlon. There's no A in triathlon.
Right.
And then when I got into heart rate monitors in the 1984, I was able to qualify for the Women's Olympics in the marathon, the trials, because I used a heart rate monitor. So I wrote the first book on heart rate monitors, and then I started a snowshoe manufacturing company, and we made some of the first racing lightweight aluminum frame snowshoes that are so popular today.
Wow.
That was 35 years ago we did that. So I like doing the first things. I start a lot of, we started in Sacramento, and I started the marathon in town called the California International Marathon. It's one of the fastest marathons in America if you want to qualify. I've started a lot of things,
It's incredible. And I wanted to ask, to me, an entrepreneur, which seems to be one of your biggest things, is you have to be creative. So I'm curious, did you grow up in a creative environment? Do you think you got any of this from your parents? And do you ever find yourself in life going, oh, that's probably from my dad, or that's probably from my mom?
Well, when you look at your athletic ability, the general rule of thumb is 50% is DNA and 50% is acquired and environmental.
Right.
And I don't know how you feel, maybe you'd share back, Malcolm, is creativity, how much of it comes from your surroundings and how much comes from, that's the outside world, how much of it comes from the inside world.
Right.
I suspect it's a combination of both. And part of creativity, and maybe you talk about your philosophy on this, is about risk.
Yes.
Entrepreneurs, we don't see risk the same way as other people.
Really?
Yeah. So maybe you'd answer both those questions I just asked.
Well, I think because I'm a pretty traditional artist, I would say music is my biggest thing. I feel, at least when I was younger, I felt vulnerable at coming up with an idea and sharing it with someone else because maybe they wouldn't like it. I grew up in an environment where my parents were very supportive. And looking back, my dad was a workaholic. He was a lawyer. He was president of the bar of New York State. Very big work ethic. And my mother was a visual artist and just incredibly creative. So I think the balance of that helped me moving forward. And because they supported me becoming a drummer and then becoming a teacher and things like that, I also spent many years as a behaviorist. So I had to think of different ways to help neurodivergent people get through their obstacles. So that all seems creative to me.
So it sounds like it was a blend.
Yeah.
A partial DNA, and I think that's probably the case for most people.
Yeah. How about you? What were your parents like? What did they do?
So I came from a military family.
Wow.
My dad was a naval officer in World War II. My age now is 78. And so he fought in the war, and, they came back damaged, although we never talked about that. And my mother was the military officer's wife role. So she went to the officers club, and then they had 4 kids, and I was the youngest with 3 older brothers. Dad came home from World War II, and, immediately my mom, and they started a family.
Right.
And with 3 older brothers, we, in that era, you played outside. Play is so important.
Yes.
And music, but in movement too.
Right.
And double onto window. And so, I was playing ball, tag, all kinds of games. And fortunately, with my 3 older brothers, I was a little faster. So when they tried to catch me, I could get away.
Yeah. I could see that.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So since we're still talking about this creativity and how it worked in my life and yours, do you think that creativity could be implemented in curing people or at least helping people with mental health struggles like depression or anxiety? And obviously, your health regimen plays a big part in this. What's your experience been?
I think, yes, a bit of it would help me, Malcolm. The definition of the word creativity, does it have this component called energy, like it comes from, or does it have a component of expanding your mind, or Where do you think all of it
I
comes from?
think all of what you said is true, but I'm thinking the improvisational part of your brain. You're presented with a problem, and you have to draw upon everything that you've learned to almost approach it as a stream of consciousness to solve a problem. So for me, looking at your life, being an entrepreneur, you're inventing things, you're adapting things. That part of the brain that thinks outside the box and solves problems. Does that make sense?
Yes, and I now run a small a fitness technology company, and we'll get to that, I'll bet. But
Yep.
um, the kind of the basis of how that works is you look for the problem,
Right.
and that's where you start. And I'm not somehow in my world, creativity just kind of comes into my mind. It's not like
Yeah.
I look for problems. It's like, hey, that's a I just had this idea. I wonder if it will work. And it happens to me almost every day. I mean, I had someone call me yesterday and say, I have this new business idea. Nobody's doing this. I want to run it by you. I need your help. So it it kind of formulates. It's not like I want to copy anybody
Right. Right.
or I admire them so much for what they did. I'm going to take a tangent off of that. It's more like, huh, and it's not even about problems. I just find this very, very interesting and I want to go do it.
Yes, and I've talked to a lot of traditional artists that say that when they write a piece of music, it can be cathartic, or if they listen to music or play music, it can be an escape from things like anxiety and depression. I would assume that all these things you do to improve people's health also aid in those mental health struggles. What has your experience been helping people getting in shape? Are you seeing a difference in their state of mind? Could maybe there's a teenager that is suffering depression, but they do one of your programs or read one of your books, and does that seem to help them deal with their struggles?
Oh, I think in my world, which is lifestyle, health, and fitness, mostly cardiovascular fitness, it is the most essential. I mean, I know we might diverge a bit on this.
Right,
I
right.
think it's an
That's
important
fine.
part of your day. I think humans were meant to move, and we have set ourselves up, as you know well, as in this sedentary society. And when the body for health and energy and mental clarity, I have some of my best ideas when I'm out working out, riding a bike, or in a swimming pool doing laps, or doing trail running, which I love. And your mind just floats along,
Yeah,
and it you can find a kind of a peacefulness
right.
different than meditation, but it's interesting where the mind goes if you just let it, if, particularly when you're moving. And I suspect that happens when you does that happen when you play music?
Yeah, I mean, for me as a drummer, I'm using four limbs at once, and sometimes I'm singing. So that is five things at once. When I
Yeah,
work with kids that I'm teaching, especially neurodivergent, it's really amazing to see if a student has something like
yeah,
Tourette's syndrome and they have these, verbal or physical tics. It's so wonderful to see that go away. Or somebody with a stutter. There's something about, I think, making art, being creative, doing exercise that just brings you to another realm where you
yeah.
really start to wonder what's causing these other things. Because when I put myself into these actions, why do those things go away? I've always found that fascinating.
I don't know the answer, but your observation is really true. I will go out and do, I know this sounds a little extreme. I've run 100-mile races. Okay. So in training, I'll go
Okay.
do a 10-mile a
Wow.
run. And, I get to about mile 8 and I said, where did those first 8 miles go? Um,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm aware of traffic and I'm aware, but all of us, it's just, I use the word float. It just, for me, I love to move, yeah, sitting still is hard.
Yeah, it sounds like there's a symbiotic relationship between your mind and your body from what you're telling me, right?
Yeah,
It becomes one, and it sounds like you're in the present, and
yeah,
these things float away, and I know what you mean by, like, sometimes when I drive to work, because we live out in the desert, it's about 50 minutes. Sometimes I'm like, how did I get here? But it sounds
yeah.
more exciting what you're saying, because you're taking care of your body and you're feeding your mind.
Yeah, there's a famous psychologist who has a really long name that starts with a C. Maybe you know that, who wrote a book called Flow.
I don't know that one.
And
I'll check that out.
oh yeah, and it is he was a European psychologist and was the first one to start to articulate this what you just described, which is a kind of a timelessness.
Yes.
It's like what happened? It was I've just been in this wonderful state, and it was just you would want to find that, but you have to run 8 miles to go to
Yeah.
sometimes to get into realizing you're in flow. It's
That's fascinating. And while you were explaining that, I looked this book up, and now I see why you're not even going to try to pronounce this guy's name.
come on,
Because
come
the
on,
the
Malcolm,
book
try.
the book is called Flow: The Psychology of Optimal Experience by Mihaly
Yes, try it. So
Csikszentmihalyi, maybe something like that. Yeah, it's a 50-cent name there.
yeah.
It looks
uh,
fascinating though, and I love psychology, so I'm definitely going to grab a copy of that. Wow.
Yeah, and it's not brand new, but many have taken his creativity, which was to come up with a concept. And I did that. I came up with a concept of a zone, what's called zone training,
Right.
which is to take numbers and put them into zones. But then we expanded that when I figured out that, or came to the conclusion that you can have emotional zones. So you can take the emotions from safety and calmness and all the way up to rage. And, I call it's called the red zone, emotional
Yeah.
zone. And we've created content around that. There's also food zones. So, and realize in trying to explain complex things and make them simple enough for people to be able to use them, this methodology called zone training that I created, I don't know, 45 years ago, has really helped to try to teach people, because I think, like you're an educator.
Right.
I am in a different way,
Yes.
trying to share knowledge and science and experience and how to live a healthy life. I've just been writing my 26th book, which is my first business book.
Good God. 26. That's
And
amazing.
it's well, I've written on health and fitness and weight loss and running and cycling and swimming and triathlons and school curriculums and physical our technology is in 3,000 schools in America right now to help kids get fit. But anyway, this book is called, well, I won't give you the name of the book, but the concept is that you're on this journey in life. And as you're on this road, this path, this journey, you can fall off the road, and for lots of reasons: emotional health, mental health,
Right.
physical health, some of the things that derail. But as you get to the top, which is where you're trying to, what is it? And creativity could be the word at the top. What is it when you find you're there in life?
Yeah, and what I love about what you just said, one of the things is, I remember when I was younger reading that Einstein, when he came up with the theory of relativity, he published a book that was a very simplified version of it because he wanted everyone to understand it. And it sounds like that's one of your goals, right? To take these complex ideas you have and make sure everybody can understand it and benefit.
Yeah, some of them have been translated into some other languages, and Europeans have said, Sally Edwards, you write too simply. You need to write at a much higher level. And I respond back, I say, most Americans think I write the content is too difficult.
Well, I'm sure you could do that if you wanted to.
Yeah, so I go. So it is a lot of fun.
So take us from Fleet Feet to Heart Zones. How did you get from one to the other?
So in 1983, I decided I wanted to qualify for the Women's Marathon Olympic Trials in Olympia, Washington, which was going to be the next year. And I bought my first heart rate monitor. And Fleet Feet, my company, started selling heart rate monitors, and I started using it. And I realized that it was I mean this in a positive. It was a weapon. I had an advantage over other runners who didn't have data.
Right. And
And
I'm
so,
sorry, what was the year of this?
1983.
Wow, that's pretty early
You,
for heart rate
okay,
monitors.
Malcolm, were you born by
I'm
1983?
about to turn 56, so I was 13.
Okay, got it. So I did qualify, and I went on, and I grew Fleet Feet. I ran it for 17 years.
Wow.
I franchised it, and my franchising was to how can I help other people get into business, because I'm much more mission driven than money driven.
Right.
And then I decided that I wanted to get into wearable technology. That word didn't even exist at the time.
I was going to say, that's amazing.
Yes. So I sold Fleet Feet quietly, which is kind of the way I like to do things, and started Heart Zones. And in between then, I helped finance a couple of other startups and tried. I was writing books. I was racing professionally. I was running a chain of 40 retail stores.
Wow.
And I was the national spokeswoman for a triathlon, all women's. We had 600,000 women do a triathlon series. So my life was really, really full. And I chose not to have kids, which gave me a lot more free time.
Right.
And yeah, I really respect those people who chose differently. You can look down the road 20 years, and do you still want to be selling franchises and selling shoes?
Right.
And which has helped. There's over 300 Fleet Feet locations in America today.
Wow. Amazing.
Yes, and the DNA of the company that my business partner and I started was to be a clubhouse, put on community events, fitness events, be experts, share that, and be
they
authentic.
still do. They still do. In fact, it's so rare to go somewhere these days and get customer service. And these people always put me in the best mood. And they do community events. And I also love that when I go in there, I'm not good at remembering specific information. So I remember the second time I went in there, they're like, "How can we help you?" And I'm like, "Well, I want to buy the same shoes in a different color." And they said, "What's your name?" And they called everything up and they just said, "Here you go." I didn't even have to take off my shoes. I was like, "I want those in blue." And they're just so friendly and so kind. So you really started something wonderful that is still happening today. So even for that, you changed the world to be better.
Thank you. It was really, it's really hard when you're 20. I was 28 years old at the time. And so it's been 50 years. And as a woman in the sporting goods business, and back in 1976, when we started it, there were no athletic footwear stores. And I'll never forget that many people thought, well, we better make sure that she has an attorney for her bankruptcy.
Yeah.
And I kind of laughed, and I said, I never even considered that. I just saw opportunity to do what you just said.
Right.
Have a wonderful retail experience, have knowledgeable people that you're working with, support your local retailer that owns that store in that town. So I made a rule that nobody could buy a Fleet Feet store, a franchise, outside of their home area.
Okay.
Because and so you can't open like 50 Burger Kings or something.
Right,
You can't do that with Fleet, and I called it carpet bagging. You can't go into somebody else's neighborhood and take their money to your neighborhood.
Yeah.
And that's still, with 300 locations, that still exists today. So I really compliment the third, it's on its third owner now.
Yeah, I mean, it still maintains that quality. So you quietly sell this off, and where do you come up with the idea for Heart Zones?
It didn't start as a technology company. It started as an education company, and we did seminars on training, and didn't make a lot of money, but we certified health club. We taught the general. We probably did 20. I probably did 25 appearances a year for that,
Wow.
and it was profitable. It was fun. And then one day, darn, this engineer, brilliant guy, came to me and he said, Sally, I've been following your career and what you believe in and how you do business, and I've developed this software, and I want Heart Zones to take it to market. I built it for school physical education. It's specific.
Wow. Wow.
And I said, I have no interest in software. I mean, it just eats all the money you have and then more money than what you have.
Yeah.
And it constantly has to be fixed and repaired and
Yep.
updated, and people yell at you and get mad. I mean, I have a really lovely business of this. And he came back the next year and he said, I made this just for you, Sally. It's the best software there is. You've got to do it. And I said, no. And the third year he said, okay, I'm going to fly to Sacramento. You're going to sit down. You're going to put 3 business people in a room. I'm going to show it. And you're going to do would you be willing to do what they say? And so I said, okay, you come here from Minnesota, bring your software. I'll put the 3 of the smartest business people I know. And at the end of his presentation, all 3 of them turned to me and said, Sally, I thought you wanted to get America fit.
It's like Shark
yes.
Tank.
Exactly. Yes. Then you have to do this. You have to take this software.
Yeah.
So got me into what's called FitTech, fitness technology.
And it seems like that helped you pave the way to doing your motivational speaking because you were naturally doing it for this Heart Zones, right?
Correct. So I then started being this evangelical person saying, and there's many more devices available, and I can go on with where this whole field is going. But, if you have like an Apple Watch that has a heart rate monitor, most smart watches have it. It's a window into your heart.
Yeah.
We just sold, 60 heart rate monitors to a movie producer in Hollywood, and they put them on. They were having a preview for this movie, and they wanted to know when everybody's heart rate went up.
I love this. This is like a Vincent Price movie. This is great.
Yeah. And so that's how they're going to decide what the scariest parts of the movie are, is based on the audience's heart rate. And I thought, that actually is pretty creative.
Yeah. Wow. That is really cool. I'm curious because you were ahead of the curve with technology way back then. What is it like now? How is the current technology, the current computer technology, AI, how is that stuff affecting your Heart Zones vision?
It actually is really helped a lot, because now you can take the data that you get from a wearable, whether it's your pace or your the activity tracking, which is a lot of the running kinds of data that you get, or treadmill data, or bicycle off a bike computer, and you can toss it into AI, and it can write you a personalized training program.
Wow.
And you say, in 8 weeks, I want to do this event, whatever can be a snowshoe race to ultra marathon, and the AI can say, well, you're here, and we're going to add a little bit each week, and a little bit, and then we're going to let you recover, and then you're going to get fit, and that's how you get fitter and fitter and fitter. So AI has really helped that phase of where we are with AI compared to where we are going with AI today.
Yes, it sounds like it speeds up the process that you were already working on. Yeah.
Yeah, and the other thing that we've sold some of our, so we do group heart rate. We can take like 100 students at a time and collect all of their fitness data, calories expended, and all of that. And for the first time, physical education teachers don't just grade fairly based on your effort. A good example is there were a bunch of kids, and I just deviated. I wanted to go back to music. I'll come back to that story. But we have sold our heart monitors to musicians.
Really?
And, oh, yeah. And it's just fascinating what state they are in the music when their heart rate's calm and when they get excited. And I would think with a drummer, and Malcolm, I should send you one of our sensors.
Oh, I would love to
Because,
try it. I'm already thinking of the conflicting things because as the drummer, if the song
yeah,
speeds up or slows down, it's my fault. And so I'm thinking, looking at this monitor, okay, I got to stay at 120. I can't get too excited.
yeah, and you can I don't know if you use iPads, but you can
Oh, yeah.
have two different screens. You could have your heart rate on half your screen, and on the other half you could have the music, and you could just visually see the changes.
This sounds like a fascinating idea for a whole school, all the teachers to work on together, because
Yes,
it hits every corner. That's
yes.
fascinating. Wow.
And we have a program for schools. Schools have a mandate, a national mandate for social and emotional learning, SEL.
I'm very
Social,
familiar with that. Yeah, yeah.
okay. So, and music would be help me in the school. Do you use music for SEL?
I have before. In fact, a few years ago with my friend Matt Ritchie, we made a live show with Henson Puppeteers, and it was live music, and it was made to help children struggling with social emotional learning. So this is extremely important to me.
Yeah. So the program is mostly in SEL. I mean, it's both behavioral, which you said you had some
Yeah, I have a big
experience.
background with neurodivergent population.
Right. And with that population, not everybody, but they can get emotionally, what's called dysregulated,
Of course.
and emotionally fired up or riled about something.
Yeah.
And so if they're wearing a heart rate monitor and you look at it, that it could be 100, 120 beats a minute. And there is a way to calm the heart so that your behavior is much more rational and not driven by emotions.
This
And so,
idea seems so limitless to me because I just got a flash idea in my head of what if all the kids were wearing these watches and the teacher had an iPad or a computer that could see, I wonder why that student is acting up. Oh, I can see the rate of,
correct.
yeah, I don't know the terminology, but I can see that some of their rates are heightened right now, and maybe I should spend a little more time with a student. That's really fascinating.
Yeah, and so that's the zone methodology. Is the colors of the thermometer, blue, yellow, and red
Yeah.
is kind of, and so the red zone is toxic, and that's when kids get in fights. Two boys walking down the hall and they bump into each other, and one starts to swing and fight instead of giving that student the skill to calm down, calm their heart, and then their cognitives can kick in. And you probably see that as somewhat in your neurodivergent
Well,
students, right?
even, I mean, right now I'm working with teenagers, so you know how unpredictable they are. And the school I'm in now, I know a lot of the students have issues they may be struggling with at home. That could be
Mhm.
anything. And it would be fascinating to see a student come in that was struggling, and we could look at the rates and see how can we help them. And that would give us a lot more clues than more of guesswork, which sometimes we have to depend on.
Yes, and the skill of calming the heart, of self-regulation is so important that, I mean, we need to teach that in schools, and so
Yeah,
that can be done using a heart rate monitor and visually, because you can't feel your heart accelerating,
right.
and then it starts accelerating your emotions. But when you look at and it goes from blue
Yeah.
to green to yellow to orange and then to toxic red, how do we teach teach the skill of regulation?
And you know what's really fascinating about this? A lot of times when you're trying to implement a new program into a school, things cost money. These readouts could provide the data that you need to get the funding.
Correct.
Wow.
Because to get grants, you
Yeah.
have to be able to collect
Yeah.
data, and all, like I said, we can take 100 students at one time.
Yeah.
They all have a sensor of some kind on. I mean, we have a number of different kinds. We're working on a glucose sensor now, which would be
Interesting.
really,
Yeah.
really valuable. that's non-invasive, and you display it either to yourself as a teacher or to the whole class. And it's, student one, student two. It's not Juanita and Jose and that kind of it's anonymous, but they then cognitively go, wow. In physical education, we want them to burn more calories and move more. We want them in that yellow and orange zones, but emotionally, we want them down in the blue, the low blue, and productive zones. And it is a way to teach both emotional regulation and to visually prove what happens.
This is extremely intriguing to me. Whenever I talk to people that have specialties like you, I like to ask them this type of question. So, for instance, I had my friend on who cuts people's hair, and I said,
Okay.
do you ever cut someone's hair and it looks amazing, and then you see them 2 days later and it's a mess? So I want to ask you, what are you hearing these days about health and fitness approaches that you don't agree with? What drives you nuts? What's like a typical thing you hear and from your experience that's probably not correct?
Well, I came up with 5 of them, but in my brain just then when you asked, and
I'm ready.
I'm gonna ask you when they play the music correct and then they play it incorrectly.
Oh, when I watch TV and somebody's playing the drums and it's not in sync and the drums are set up backwards, that's for me. I'm like, oh my God.
Oh gosh, do people do that?
Oh, all the time.
Oh,
You tell me though, what are your top 5 pet peeves for health that you're hearing these days?
Well, the number one is I don't need a wearable device. I know what my heart is doing. And I just look at them in dismay because you can't feel it. There's only one way to either measure what's called with optical or the electrical activity of the heart to really know. The other is that if I eat, this is about metabolic well-being. If I eat less and exercise more, I'm going to lose weight.
Yeah.
And in fact, that's not how the human body regulates weight in a really efficient way.
Right.
And particularly for women with hormones that really can affect that. Another is there's a formula called 220 minus your age. Is called your maximum heart rate, and it is just so invalid. And journalists and exercise scientists, I mean, we're all different,
right?
And
good point.
Our heart rates are all different. They're not every 40-year-old. When I take 220 minus me, it doesn't have a heart rate of a peak or max heart rate of 180 beats a minute. It could be 50 beats off. I mean, it's just the error is huge by using any mathematical formula almost to calculate.
And people have different metabolisms, right? And you have to take that into account.
Correct. And how you process a calorie is going to be different than how I do. And that's that metabolic rate you're just mentioning. But yeah, we're all different. And to assume that one size fits all is just not true at all.
To me, you have accomplished so much in one lifetime already. How does it feel to have set so many projects in motion, events and organizations? How does it feel to put things out there that are making the world a better place?
When you live, you try the best you can, and to live in the present moment. And in the present moment, you're not looking back at what you've done or forward to what you can do. I live a pretty happy life. I think that the purpose of life, we've all been through those stages trying to figure that out. And for me, the purpose of life is not happiness. And I use the expression, if you call mine, get my phone answering machine, I say, have a great life.
Yeah.
And that's what I really want for people. I want people to have a great life. And you're not going to have a great life if you're unhappy with your body, or if you have regrets, like I should have, learned how to play the trumpet, or if you live in the past or too far in the present, and you just deal with all of those things. So in my position, there's lots more I want to do, and I'm not going to slow down.
What are your next goals? Can you share anything with us that you're starting to think about?
Yes, we currently, as I said, with our technology, we're in 3,000 schools. Malcolm, there's 100,000 schools in America.
Wow.
So we've only been able to deal with 3% of the schools, and in particular, for school counselors, in social emotional learning, and for health teachers. We collect data, so our data can be used in science classes and math classes, but I really want to expand. A good example is that we're looking at the U.S. military right now, and they're having a hard time getting recruits because they can't meet the physical fitness requirement.
That's interesting, but makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and so the military has been forced to reduce their readiness because they don't have as many recruits as they need, because they can pass every test but the fitness test.
Right.
So I would really like to help provide and it's a very big goal, the military, with wellness programs for all of the services, in a way that America can get fit enough that we can have physically fit soldiers and safety officers in our country, and we don't have that right now.
That's interesting, because a lot of times when I go through a heavy amount of stress, I think to myself, I can get through this, because what about those Marines that can deal with a higher level stress? But I love that you're saying we really need to help those guys and those women get a real physical mind body relationship, because I don't know this for sure, but I'm willing to bet that when these people go into high stress situations, they're maybe compartmentalized or pushing their feelings down. And if they had a well-rounded program like you're suggesting, maybe many of them would not come home with things like PTSD.
Correct. And when I was a young woman, the Vietnam War was happening, and I volunteered with the Red Cross to go to Saigon and spent a year in a war zone, and it was a horror. The Vietnam War was just horrible. We lost almost 60,000 Americans over those 20-something years that we were engaged in that war. And I just, I'm a patriot. I'd like to help my country, and that's one way I could do it.
Yeah. One thing I always like to do toward the end of a discussion is say some quotes and just have your response. So I've got a few for you here. The first one was by John F. Kennedy. He once said that physical fitness is not only one of the most important keys to a healthy body, it is the basis of dynamic and creative intellectual activity. What does that mean to you?
That means that, and there's a lot of research to validate what I'm about to say, that if you are physically active, you have a healthier brain. And that because by being physically active, I mean mostly what's called moderate to vigorous physical activity, not strolling around at a slow walk for hours thinking you're doing something good for yourself.
Yeah.
It increases the blood flow to the brain. It helps with the nervous system. And the research shows that those people are typically smarter in school. After school, I don't have that research, but in school, they perform better on tests, and they perform better behaviorally in a classroom.
That makes a lot of sense, because a lot of times when I get to school, if I'm there a little bit early, I'll do 50 push-ups, and not only do I feel better physically, but it's almost like having a couple cups of coffee.
Yeah. In some schools, they'll have like hula hoops and jump ropes and things outside the classroom.
Yeah.
Before a test, if you'll do 5 minutes of really intense exercise, you score better on tests.
Yeah, you're reminding me. I visited this one school out here once. I think it was called the Chime School. And one thing I loved about their school is every classroom had a little trampoline outside the classroom door. And at
Oh,
any time, if a student felt like they were too jumpy and fidgety, they could just go out and jump for a while. And I thought it was a
yeah,
beautiful idea.
yeah, yeah. And it is better than coffee. So if you get those afternoon blues, I recommend you have a jump rope. Just try to do, there's a fitness routine that's called 3 times 3. 3 times a day for 3 minutes you jump rope, and it's the total of 9 minutes, and you get almost all the cardio benefits
Wow.
of a half an hour to an hour of exercise in 9 minutes with jump roping.
All right, no excuse. I've got to try that out.
Oh yeah, but yeah, doing jump roping for 3 minutes, you got to work up to it. It's not easy. But if you can do 50 push-ups, I'm impressed, Malcolm.
Yeah, I got a long way to go, but I can do that. So,
Good job.
Carol Welch once said, movement is a medicine for creating change in a person's physical, emotional, and mental states.
So there is a very famous, prestigious organization called the American College of Sports Medicine.
Yes.
Have you ever heard of the American College of Sports Medicine?
I have heard of it, yes.
Yeah, it is the global body. There's like 20,000 PhDs. I'm a member, graduate level exercise scientist. And the theme they have is that exercise is medicine.
Yes.
And movement is medicine, is what Carol Welch said. But I think I'm going to disagree with this really prestigious group.
It's okay. Yeah, I'm curious.
Okay, they say exercise is medicine, and I say prevention, medical prevention is medicine. We need to prevent the onslaught of degenerative diseases, whether they're heart attacks or diabetes or hypertension. We need to do the kinds of lifestyle living that prevent us so we don't need to take pharmaceutical medicine.
I completely agree with that. And it's hard when you're a teacher in a school and you're in a classroom. A lot of times I ask for a standing desk because I would rather not sit down all day. In fact, I used to do websites for a living, and the biggest reason I stopped is I don't want to sit down all day.
Yeah. Yeah, and some of the smart watches now actually will give you an alert. And when you get the alert, you should actually stand up and move somewhere, not just slam it down and say, I'm in the middle of something. No, it's telling you your brain and your body need to change.
I love that. I would be in big trouble, but I better get one of those. All right, I've got two more quotes, and they're both by you. I really like both of these. You once said, I was using my body as the research lab. I kept asking myself, how far and how hard can the human body go? Tell us a little bit of why you said that.
So I wrote some of the original, I may have written the original, but anyway, some of the original books on training in the early 1980s. So some 45 years ago, you went out and you played to be good at a sport activity. You went out and did the activity. You didn't prepare for it. You didn't train. You just did the activity. And so principles of exercise science were not well established. And I'll give you an example. Is one of those principles is called specificity.
Right.
And specificity means if I want to be a good runner, I run, run, run. And I invented the concept of cross-training.
I was going to ask you about that because I read that and I wasn't sure if it was true. Tell me more.
Yeah, so cross-training, and I was, as a quote, I was using my body to experiment, and I wanted to set a personal best at running a marathon. And so I did cross-training. So I was swimming, I was biking, I was running, I was stretching, I was doing strength training. I trained, and then I did 8 weeks of sports specificity. And I said, if I just take this big foundation of cross-training and I put sports specificity, and sure enough, I ran a 2 hour and 50-minute marathon, which was a PR for me. So there was no research. And as I ran further, I ran a 50-mile race, then I ran a 72-mile race, then I ran a 100-mile race. Some of the exercise scientists said, we'd like to draw some blood and take some urine and scrape off some sweat and see what's going on.
Right.
We have no research. So some of us in the late 1970s and throughout the 90s, we're the early guinea pigs for these exercise labs.
Yeah. And you did a good thing. Instead of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde turning into a monster, you experimented on yourself and you made yourself better.
Yep. And the exercise scientist said, no, Sal, you're wrong. To be a good runner, you have to run. And I said, no, to be a good runner, you have to cross-train. And sure enough, almost all really good runners cross-train today.
Indeed. All right. The last quote I have is also by you. The only way to be who you want to be is by being what you haven't been yet. I love that. Tell me a little bit more.
I'm a big believer in doing things for the first time.
Yes.
And particularly in our aging population, living in the rut is the 6 feet under the ground life. And so experimenting, trying new things is something I encourage everyone to do. And if you've been one of Malcolm's listeners in this program, I hope you had some ideas of how to live a healthier and fitter life, and take some risks. If you've always wanted to do dancing, then go take a dance class. Or if you've always wanted to learn something about computers, go take a class on how to write code in Python. I mean, take some risks, and sure enough, you're going to find you're going to fail every once in a while, and it's not fun to fail. Let me tell you, it's always I love winning in races and being the first, but I think that the best thing to do is to live a really full life is to go out and experiment and try living. And I'll give you an example, Malcolm. When was the last time you did something for the first time?
Okay, this would be around October. I have played music my whole life. I've been a drummer. I'm pretty good on piano. I write songs. I do all these things. But right. I had never conducted an orchestra. And I was a long-term sub for a music teacher. And I had about 3 weeks to figure out how to conduct. And yeah, it was... I quickly watched the movie The Maestro, and I was like, okay, I got this down. I'm a drummer. I have pretty good rhythm. But you really have to, the orchestral music has to breathe a little bit more. And it's almost a dance-like movement. And the way that our school was set up is we had a choir on the left, but around the corner was the pit band. So I was watching the woman directing the choir, but giving her the tempo, but also to the right, keeping the pit band going. And I remember I was terrified, but it worked out. I believed in myself and went home and told my wife, I did it.
Yes.
Now, am I going to keep being a conductor? Probably not, but I did it. I tried something outside of my comfort zone.
And congratulations.
Thank you.
To all your listeners, I challenge you to do what Malcolm did, which is to take some risks, to do something you've never done before, and hopefully find joy, because it sounds like you've ran into a lot of joy with that.
It was fun. My last question for you is, I am a voracious book reader, and I was so excited when I saw that you wrote 25 books, but I don't know where to start. What do you suggest? There's so many different topics.
I suggest I've written a lot on weight loss and metabolic activities. If that's your interest, obviously as a triathlete, I've written on swim, bike, run. I've written on heart rate monitors. I think you should go to what you're most interested in. Most of them you can get in libraries and as PDFs, so you don't have to.
Well, you've done some haven't you written some for different ages of students at schools? I think there was a high school one, maybe.
So I wrote curriculums for physical education teachers on how to teach PE in a whole different way, which is on using wearable technology and data and different lesson plans and activities that you can do to both teach physiology. So when you do use a heart rate monitor, it's a sensor. You can measure things like recovery and peak and average and what's called ambient, like when you're sitting completely still. And by doing that, you can really begin to regulate both your emotions, but more particularly in this case, your physical well-being, because they're like numbers like your ambient, you want to be really low. And then your thresholds, you want to be really high. So I am just such a huge advocate of using technology to both learn, but also to get healthier. And so any of those books that fit those interests, and some of them are like I wrote a book called the Heart Rate Monitor Guidebook, and it has how you get started, and it's for the beginner.
That one sounds really good. That sounds great for a beginner.
Yeah, and it's just kind of guides you, not about, you can buy any kind of heart rate monitor you want. I don't care the brand. I care that what you understand what the data means, how to do self-assessments, and how to improve your health and fitness by having this information about your heart.
So if people want to learn more about you, I know that you have your Heart Zones website, heartzones.com. I've also noticed that you're pretty active on LinkedIn. What other places should people follow what you're up to?
I'm not a big fan of the billionaire oligarchs and social media, so I write for Substack. Substack is a content platform for thought leaders.
Okay.
And some of the articles that I write on Substack, I think people would really enjoy reading.
Okay, so Substack, your Heart Zones website, and I think anybody that works is on LinkedIn, and it seems
Correct.
to be updated every day. I like a lot of the articles there.
Yeah, thank you, Malcolm.
And then, so I'm actually interested. I'm going to try to connect you maybe tomorrow with the people at my school. How should schools get in touch with you if they want to bring your program in?
They can either call our office in Sacramento and we'll do like a 10-minute demo. And it's one of those things that PE teachers go, wow, I have to have this.
Yeah.
And, in schools, funding is a big issue. So we have some people that'll help provide grants to schools, because technology is not cheap, and physical educators are very like music. You're very underfunded for trying to have a quality program, and then the resources go elsewhere in the school.
Yeah. But like we talked about earlier, this technology that you've been helping develop can get the statistics that people need to get grants. It can really prove that this is not only the response of the kids, but you can show them the numbers.
Yep. And we can prove that the beginning of the year and the end of the year, the kids get fitter. And there's no other really way to assess that. And school physical education has really changed from the old model of tossing out a ball or sports. And it's much more now about, in part, social emotional learning. What can we learn by being physically active with each other? But also we can now measure a lot of health parameters to validate that you've got to move. You can't sit in a chair as a kid all day long. You've got to have, there's only 12 states that have a mandate for recess.
Really? There's
schools that do not even have recess because it's not required.
Well, and out here in Los Angeles where I work, I've been working for charter schools, and they often have repurposed buildings, and almost none of them come with, a music room, God forbid, a place for PE class. They often have to go to the park or rent another building, or like at our school, we go to the top of the parking lot because the kids can run around.
Oh, wow. A parking lot. You don't have a grass field, it sounds like.
Not at this one, but we need to make it work. And it sounds like your ideas are so innovative that no matter where you are, no matter what your limitations are, there's no reason not to take better care of your body.
Yes. And as we started this conversation on creativity, if you don't have open space and equipment, you can be creative and figure out ways to move that are really fun.
Yeah. Well, Sal, this has been tremendously inspiring to me personally, and I'm sure it will be to all my listeners. So thank you very much. And I would love to talk to you in the future again about this. And I'm going to do a little research and learn your stuff, and then I'm going to get back to you.
I'd appreciate that, and all your listeners can do the same. I like talking to folks and helping out. So thanks for reaching out, Malcolm.
Thank you, Sal.
Hello, my name is Jefferson De Leon, and I am a scientist in the biotech sector and a comedy musician, and I am a proud sponsor of the Creativity is the Cure podcast, because creativity is central to who I am and what I do. Check out my creations on my website, jeffersondeleone.com. That is JEFFERSONDELEONE.com.